Hi. Okay, we're going to be talking about flaw height sizing by amplitude drop. A lot of people would use this as 6 dB drop flaw height sizing. Amplitude drop flaw height sizing does not work, and I can't think of a theoretical basis for why people would want to say that it does work. The idea is, if you had, for example, an ID connected flaw, this is the OD, this is the ID, and you set, say, for example, a 45 degree, you moved your probe to maximize your signal from the corner trap signal, and you brought that to a specific screen height, let's say, for example, 80% screen height. Then when you move your transducer forward to where the signal drops half as much, 6 dB less, which would be from 80% minus 6 dB would be 40%. So when you move your transducer forward to where it's 50% as high, you could take a measurement and see how deep the flaw is. And so we're going to try and do that with 45 on the notch block. And we're going to try it on all the notches with 45, and then we could try it with 60. All right, let's go ahead and try that. Okay, here we are back at our manual UT, and I'm going to recall my cal for a 45 degree shear on a 1-inch deep screen. I'm going to go ahead and check that cal. I'm going to look at the 4 side roll holes that are 100, 200, 300, 400 thousandths deep. Ideally, the tops of those holes would be at 16 thou less than that. 84, 184, 284, 384. Here's the 100 deep side drill hole. Okay, that's close to 84. Here's the 200 deep. It's close to 184. Here's the 300 deep. Close to 284. Here's the 400 deep. Close to 384. I could fuss with that, but those are going to be pretty close. All right, let's look at the notched block. This is a 300 thousandths thick notched block, and let's see, a 50% deep notch. That would be 150 thousandths deep ID notch. There's the super loud corner trap signal at 300 deep. Push forward to look for a tip, and there's our tip signal. Maximize that tip right around there. That should be near 150 deep. I'll bump that up into the gate near 150. So that's the way you should do your sizing, with a tip diffraction. All right, so we're going to try to do this with 6 dB drop amplitude sizing, and I'm going to look at each of the notches, bring it to 80%, and then move the probe to get it 6 dB less at 40%, and then we'll take our measures. So I'm going to start with the 10 thousandths notch. Here's the 10 thousandths deep ID notch. Pretty close, near to 300 deep where it's supposed to be. And let's get this to read in percent. There's 80%. Now I'm going to move forward until it's 40% screen height. That'll be 6 dB less. 6 dB drop measurement. Should be right about there. All right, and our depth measurement is 276. 276 from 300 is 24 thousandths. So I'm going to say that's measured as 24 for a flaw height of 24 thousandths. Let's try the 30 thou notch. Here's the 30 thou deep ID notch. There's the corner trap signal, close to 300 deep. I'm going to bring that to 80% screen height. Okay, now I'm gonna, let me get that in there, come on. There we go. Okay, so I'm gonna push forward until it's 40% screen height. That'll be a 6 dB drop. Right about there. All right, and that's saying it is 274 deep on that spot. 300 minus 274 is 26 thousandths, so that would say it's 26 thousandths. Make a note of that. All right, let's try the 60 thou notch. There's our loud corner trap signal. We'll bring that down to 80% screen height. Maximize that. All right, there's 80%. I'm going to push forward till that is 40%. That'd be a 6 dB drop. Right about there. That's saying 261. 300 minus 261 is 39 thousandths. That is 60, but that technique says it's 39. All right, let's try the 90 thousandths notch. There's the corner trap signal from the 90 thou. Bring that down to 80% screen height. Okay, now I'm going to move forward till it is 40%. That would be a 6 dB drop. Right there. Okay, that says 256 deep. 256 from 300 is 44 thousandths. So that would be measured at 44 thousandths. It is 90. All right, let's try the 120 notch. There's the corner trap signal, maximized. Bring that to 80% screen height. Now I'm going to move forward till that is 40%. That would be a 6 dB drop. Right about there. That says 254 deep. 300 minus 254 is 46 thou. So this technique is saying it's 46 thousandths deep when it is 120. Let's try the 150 notch. Here's the 150 notch. There's the corner trap signal from the 150 notch. I'll bring that to 80% screen height. All right, now I'm going to push forward till it is 40%. That would be a 6 dB drop. Right about there. That says 256 deep. 300 minus 256 is 44 thou. So that's saying that it is 44 thou, that flaw height, when it is 150. Let's try the 180. There's the corner trap signal from the 180 notch. Maximized, we'll bring that to 80% screen height. And I'm going to push forward till that is 40% screen height. Right about there, that's saying 256 again. 300 minus 256 is 44 thousandths. So that's saying it is 44 thousandths when really it's 180. Let's try the 210 thousandths deep ID notch. There's the corner trap signal from the 210 notch. I'll bring that to 80% screen height. And now I'm going to push forward till that is 40% screen height. That would be a 6 dB drop. That says 256. 300 minus 256 is 44 thousandths. So that's saying it's 44 thousandths when it is 210 thousandths. So we end up with numbers that look like this. So I'm going to say that by coincidence on some of those lower numbers it's not too far off. It's only off by 4 thousandths on the 30, and it's only off by 14 thousandths on the 10. But after a certain point they all measure the same size. I think that has more to do with the size of the transducer. So the 6 dB drop technique does not work for flaw height sizing. All right, thanks. Okay, so 6 dB drop flaw height sizing does not work. But there are a couple of cases where 6 dB drop sizing works. One case would be in the case of a big lamination. Let's say this is the outside of the material and this is the inside of the material. And you had a large lamination that was larger than the size of the transducer. Let's say this is your transducer, so there's your surface area of the round transducer. Then if you have a certain loudness here and some amplitude and you brought it to, like we did before, let's say you brought it to 80% screen height, when you were halfway over the edge you would be 6 dB less, you'd be at 40%. So you could use this technique to bound the outside edges of a large lamination. Another time when you could do 6 dB drop sizing is for flaw length sizing. Let's say you had a weld, and inside that weld you had a large indication with some length to it. You know, if this was your angle beam transducer and you got into the middle of the flaw with your angle beam transducer shooting sound into the flaw, as long as the flaw had the same reflectivity along its entire length, then you could do 6 dB drop flaw length sizing. But when do you ever have a flaw where you know for a fact that it's the same reflectivity along its entire length? You don't really. That's an assumption that's often made for length sizing, that you'll just say, I'm going to assume that it is the same reflectivity over its entire length. If that was true, then you could shoot at the flaw, use the same idea with the 6 dB drop, bring the signal to 80% screen height, say, somewhere in the middle, and then out here where only half the sound is hitting it, you would be 6 dB less, and you could use that to bound the edges of the flaw. So theoretically that's an area where you could do 6 dB drop length sizing, but it's only theoretical, because normally I don't think you have flaws where you can say for a fact that they are the same amount of reflectivity for their entire length. Okay, thanks a lot. Okay, so 6 dB drop flaw height sizing didn't work with the 45. I said I would try it with the 60. I made a couple of attempts at it, and it was difficult to make sense out of it because we had a video earlier where we described how a 60 does not like to reflect out of a corner. Actually, if you've watched the previous video, a 60 has almost no reflection out of a quarter, but some of the angles close to 60, like in the lower 50s or higher than 60, do. So like if you have a 300 deep corner trap signal, like all the notches on our notch block, when you're using the 60, it won't want to peak up at 300 deep. You'll have some angles higher than 60 where it will peak up and some angles lower than 60 where it will peak up. So when you try to peak it up, you have to decide which of those peaks to use, and then it's also kind of problematical to decide which one to choose to use for the 6 dB drop. So With the 60, that just really didn't work either. So, all right, let's see what happens when we try this with phased array.